plan. There is something magical about 4 a.m. The world is quiet, the air feels lighter, plan. And everything stands still. Just long enough for you to hear your own heart. It's not about the hour on the clock, plan. It's about what that hour represents. It represents the moment you decide that your life matters, plan. That your dreams are not optional. That your peace, your growth, your healing cannot wait for the chaos of the day to subside, plan. I know what it feels like to carry pain into the morning. To wake up tired, not just in your body, but in your spirit, plan. I've lived mornings where the only thing heavier than my eyes were my regrets. But I also know this, plan. We are stronger than we think and braver than we believe. When you wake up at 4 a.m., plan, you are not chasing time. You are claiming it. You're saying, before the world tells me who I am, plan, I will tell myself. Before email's noise, judgment, or distraction, you choose stillness. You choose to reconnect, plan. You choose to start. This early hour becomes your sacred ground. You read, you prayed, you plan, you cry maybe, you heal, plan, you grow. No one sees the battles you fight at 4 a.m., but trust me, the world will see the strength you build there, plan. Let me ask you something. What if the life you dream of is just on the other side of discipline, plan? What if the person you've been searching for is hidden inside the silence of the morning, plan? You don't have to move mountains at 4 a.m., you just have to move yourself. So tomorrow, set your alarm, and when it rings, plan. Don't hit snooze on your future. Sit up, breathe in possibility, and rise, not just from your bed, but into your purpose. My plan, you are not here to survive, you are here to rise. Start at 4 a.m., start now. Thank you. When we speak of waking up at 4 a.m., plan, many people immediately think of discipline, productivity, or hustle. But there's a deeper plan, more personal layer to it that goes far beyond a ticking clock, plan. Waking up at 4 a.m. is not about joining a trend or proving something to the world. It is about making a sacred promise to yourself, plan. It is the quiet declaration that your life, your time, plan, and your inner peace are worth prioritizing before the rest of the world demands your attention, plan. In that simple act of setting the alarm and choosing to rise before the sun, you're whispering to your soul, I matter, plan. My dreams matter. The truth is, our lives are often dictated by urgency, emails, notifications, deadlines, responsibilities. Plan, we become reactors, not creators. But 4 a.m. gives us back the reins, plan. It represents an intentional shift from living life on autopilot to living life on purpose. That hour becomes a sanctuary of choice, plan. No one is waiting for you. No one is watching. So when you choose to rise, it's not out of obligation. It's out of ownership, plan. You're saying, I'm not waking up because I have to. I'm waking up because I want to, plan, for me. That shift in energy, from external to internal, is where the real power lies. There's also something symbolic about waking up in the dark, plan. It mirrors the seasons of life when we feel lost, unseen, or uncertain. And yet, in that darkness, if you are willing to rise, plan, willing to sit with yourself, breathe, reflect, and build, you'll find that your own light begins to shine, plan. The world hasn't given you permission yet. The sun hasn't risen yet, but you have, plan. That is what intention looks like. Choosing growth, even when it's hard. Showing up for yourself, even when no one else does, plan. Waking up at 4 a.m. is not a rule to follow. It's an invitation to reclaim your time, your mind, and your spirit, plan. It's a deliberate act of self-respect. It asks nothing from others. Only something from you, your willingness, plan. Your willingness to try, to be still, to be uncomfortable, to begin again. And slowly in that early hour, plan intention becomes identity, plan. You stop being someone who waits for life to happen, and you start becoming someone who shapes it. In today's world, plan, Silence has become a rare luxury. From the moment we wake up, we are surrounded by noise. The ping of a message, plan. The hum of traffic, the voices of others, and most of all, the constant chatter in our own minds, plan. It's easy to get swept away in the current of it all, losing ourselves in what others expect of us or who they think we should be, plan. But in the silence of 4 a.m., everything quiets down. The world hasn't stirred yet, and in that peaceful emptiness, plan, we finally have a chance to hear something we often ignore, our own truth. Clarity does not shout, plan. It does not come through chaos. It arrives in a whisper, often unnoticed, unless we're willing to slow down and truly listen, plan. That's what the early morning gives us. Not just time, but space. Space to reflect without pressure, to think without judgment, plan, and to feel without distraction. When there's no noise to answer to, you stop performing and start observing, plan. You ask yourself real questions. What do I want? Am I happy? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And in the stillness, plan, honest answers begin to emerge. Not always easy, but always necessary, plan. We often underestimate how much clarity we sacrifice just by living in reaction mode. We run from one task to another, plan, filling our schedules so we don't have to sit with ourselves. But in the early silence of morning, there is no one to impress, plan. There is nothing to hide behind. You are left with your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, all laid bare in the quiet, plan. And that's where the transformation begins, not in dramatic action, but in the small, soft moment where your heart speaks, plan, and you finally hear it. When you give yourself to silence, you begin to untangle the confusion that's built up over time, plan. You begin to separate the voice of the world from the voice within. What once felt complicated becomes simple, plan. What felt overwhelming begins to make sense, plan. This clarity doesn't shout or demand anything from you. It just asks that you show up, fully present, without noise, plan. And when you do, something shifts. You start seeing your path more clearly, not because it suddenly appeared, plan, but because the fog of noise has finally lifted. We spend so much of our lives trying to find purpose in what we do, in titles, plan, in goals, in accomplishments that others can see. But the truth is, purpose does not begin in doing, it begins in being. And to be, plan, we must first connect with ourselves. Before we pour into the world, we must know who we are, plan. Before we chase dreams or follow expectations, we must pause and ask, who am I when no one is looking? What do I truly value, plan? That kind of connection doesn't happen in a crowd. It happens in quiet, raw moments when we dare to sit with our own reflection, plan. 4 a.m. gives us those moments. It strips away the noise and the masks we wear for others. In that early hour, plan, you are not someone's employee, parent, partner, or friend. You are simply you. No roles, no expectations, plan. Just a human being with stories, with scars, with questions. And in that space, you begin to meet yourself in the most honest way, plan. You begin to see not just what the world expects from you, but what your soul longs for, plan. You start peeling away the layers that have been shaped by fear, by pain, by approval. And underneath it all, plan, you discover your truth. That self-connection becomes the compass for everything else. When you know yourself deeply, plan, you stop following the crowd and start following your calling. You make decisions not out of fear, but out of alignment, plan. You no longer need constant validation because you are anchored in your own values, plan. That doesn't mean life gets easier, but it does get clearer. You begin to live intentionally, not just habitually, plan. And you learn that your purpose is not a destination to arrive at, but a relationship you build with yourself. Day by day, plan, moment by moment. There is a sacred kind of strength that comes from being rooted in yourself. The world may shake you, plan. People may misunderstand you, life may challenge you. But when you are deeply connected to who you are, plan. You do not lose your center, you return to it. Again and again. And the more you return, the more you grow, plan. That is the foundation of purpose. Not the applause of others, plan. But the quiet knowing that you are living in alignment with your own heart. And that is more powerful than any title the world could ever give. We often imagine growth as something loud, something visible, plan, celebrated, maybe even applauded. But real growth rarely looks like that. It doesn't happen in front of a crowd, plan. It happens behind closed doors, in quiet rooms, in tear-stained journals, in moments when no one is watching, plan. Solitude is not emptiness, it is sacred space. It is the soil in which transformation takes root. In the stillness of being alone, plan, we begin to see ourselves not as the world sees us, but as we truly are. And sometimes, for the first time, plan, we stop performing and start becoming, plan. There is an honesty that comes with solitude, a rawness that forces us to face the parts of ourselves we often hide, plan. In the presence of others, we wear masks, we stay strong, we smile when we are breaking, plan. But when you are alone, truly alone, there is no one to impress. There is only truth. And in that truth, healing begins, plan. You learn to sit with your past without running, to feel your emotions without drowning in them, plan, and to see your wounds not as signs of weakness, but as reminders that you have survived, that you are still here, plan, and still becoming. The early hours of the morning give us a quiet that few other moments in life offer, plan. When the world is asleep and the demands of the day haven't arrived yet, you meet yourself without distraction, plan. That's when you begin the slow, patient work of rebuilding. You write your thoughts, you speak to God, you sit with your silence, plan, and slowly you begin to feel the shift, not in one dramatic moment, but in many small ones. A little more clarity, plan. A little more strength, a little more self-respect. Growth doesn't knock loudly. It whispers through the consistency of solitude, plan. People may not see the work you're doing at 4 a.m. They may not know the battles you fight in silence, plan. Or the courage it takes to keep showing up for yourself when no one else notices, plan. But that is where true strength is born, not in visibility, but in integrity. When you can rise in solitude, reflect in solitude, plan, and grow in solitude, you become unshakable. Because you've learned that your worth is not dependent on being seen, plan. It's rooted in who you are when no one else is looking, and that version of you is powerful beyond measure, plan. We often think of discipline as a cage, as something that restricts us, something heavy and punishing, plan. But that's a misunderstanding. True discipline is not a prison. It is a pathway. It is the quiet, plan, consistent choice to show up for yourself, even when motivation fades, even when the bed is warm and the excuses are loud, plan. Discipline isn't about punishing yourself. It's about liberating yourself, plan. Because the real prison is not waking up early or making sacrifices. The real prison is regret, stagnation, plan, and the feeling that your life is slipping through your fingers while you watch, plan. Waking up at 4 a.m. is not about proving how strong you are to others. It's about honoring the quiet promise you've made to yourself, plan. The promise that your time is valuable, your growth is essential, and your goals are worthy of your energy, plan. That kind of discipline is not harsh, it's rooted in love. It's the love that says, plan. I care about my future self enough to make this effort today. Every time you rise early, plan. Every time you stick to your intention when it would be easier to give in, you are building something powerful. Not just a habit, plan, but a sense of self-respect that no one can take away from you. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more disciplined you become, plan, the more free you feel. Because suddenly you're no longer controlled by emotions, impulses, or distractions. Plan. You don't live at the mercy of your moods. You create structure, and within that structure, you find stability. Plan. That stability allows you to think clearly, move purposefully, and act with integrity. Plan. You're not rushing through your days anymore. You're leading them. Plan. That sense of control over your time and your mind becomes the most empowering kind of freedom you can imagine. Discipline. Plan. At its core is about alignment. Plan. It's not about perfection or pressure. It's about choosing what matters most over what feels easiest in the moment. Plan. And when that choice becomes your rhythm, you start to notice something. Life becomes simpler. Not easier, but clearer. Plan. You begin to trust yourself more. You follow through. You stay consistent. And through that consistency, plan, your life starts to change, not overnight, but over time, quietly, like the slow rising of the sun after a long night. Plan. And that's the kind of change that lasts. We often talk about morning routines in terms of productivity, journaling, meditating, plan, reading, exercising. But beneath all these actions lies something far more profound. Morning routines, especially in those early, plan. Quiet hours are not just habits, they are anchors. Plan. They are the way we return to ourselves before the world begins to pull us in different directions. Plan. In a life filled with unpredictability. Plan. A morning routine becomes a space of emotional safety, a moment where you are reminded that you are in control of how your day begins. Plan. No matter what comes after. When you rise before the world, plan. And you choose to do something kind for your mind or your heart. Whether it's writing down your thoughts, sitting in silence, plan, or simply making a cup of tea with intention, you are nurturing your emotional well, being in ways that few things can. Plan. You are teaching yourself, gently but powerfully, that your emotions are worth listening to, that your inner world matters. Plan. And in that consistency, even on days when you feel tired or lost, you give yourself a steady place to land. Plan. That's not just a routine. That's resilience in action. There is something deeply healing about repetition done with intention. Plan. The act of showing up for yourself again and again, even in small ways, begins to rebuild the parts of you that life may have chipped away. Plan. Each morning, you tell yourself without words, I deserve this care, I deserve this space. That message repeated daily, plan, rewires the way you see yourself. You stop rushing, you stop reacting, you start responding from a place of calm. Plan, from a place of centered emotional strength that you cultivated in the early hours when the world was still asleep. Plan. Emotional strength isn't always about pushing through. Sometimes it's about pausing. Plan. It's about creating space for reflection, for breathing, for grounding yourself before the demands of the world come crashing in. Plan. A morning routine becomes your shield, not to hide behind, but to walk forward with. It gives you the clarity to face challenges. Plan. The patience to deal with people, and the grace to forgive yourself when you fall. Plan. And the beauty of it all is that it doesn't have to be grand. Even the smallest ritual, done with love and presence, plan, can make your soul stronger than ever before. We often convince ourselves that change has to be dramatic. Plan. That to transform our lives, we need to take giant leaps, make bold moves, or flip everything upside down overnight. Plan. But the truth is, transformation is quiet. It starts with the smallest shift. A single thought, a new decision. Plan. A different response. And over time, these small changes build upon one another, quietly reshaping who we are. Plan. Waking up at 4 a.m. is one of those subtle shifts. It may seem simple, even ordinary, but it holds the power to change everything. Plan. Not because of what it is, but because of what it represents: a willingness to begin. One morning, one choice, one step, plan. That's all it takes to begin a new direction. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to feel ready, plan. You just need to take that first small step with faith, plan. The power of small shifts lies in their sustainability. They're not overwhelming and they don't burn you out. Instead, plan. They quietly invite you to keep going. And before you know it, the person you were months ago becomes unrecognizable, plan. Not because you made one huge change, but because you made hundreds of small, plan, brave decisions when no one else was watching. These shifts might not look impressive on the outside. Waking up a little earlier, plan. Choosing a kind word over a harsh one. Spending 5 minutes journaling instead of scrolling. But inside, plan. They are acts of rebellion against everything that told you to stay the same. They are acts of self-respect, of self-belief, plan. And each time you choose growth over comfort, even in the smallest way, you strengthen the roots of your transformation, plan. You begin to realize that change is not about what you do once. It's about what you do consistently in those small, plan, sacred moments of choice. The beauty of small shifts is that they meet you where you are. You don't have to be perfect, plan. You don't need a grand plan. You just need to move, even slightly, in the direction of the life you want to create, plan. And slowly, the gap between who you are and who you want to be starts to close.